Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really powerful book called World Crisis and the Pathway to Peace. And let me tell you, it lays out a pretty sobering view of where we're at as a planet. So, right out of the gate, the book hits you at this, a warning that we're hurtling towards a third world war at a terrifying speed. Talk about setting a tone of urgency. This is it. So, you might be wondering who's behind this message. Well, these arguments come from Mirza Masroor Ahmad, who is the head of the worldwide Ahmadiyya Muslim Community. And this isn't just theory. What we're breaking down here comes from his actual speeches and letters to world leaders, where he diagnoses the crisis and, more importantly, tries to chart a course away from it.
All right, first things first, let's get into the diagnosis. The author makes a compelling case that what's happening right now, well, it's not entirely new. In fact, he points to some seriously unsettling parallels from history that should be a massive red flag for all of us.
Okay, look at this comparison. The book basically says, hey, does this feel familiar? It draws a straight line from the 1930s to today. Back then, you had the League of Nations failing. Sound familiar with the critiques of the UN today? You had the Great Depression, and we had the 2008 global financial crisis. And those rising nationalistic blocs? Well, we're seeing new geopolitical alliances forming right now. It's kind of eerie, right?
But here's the kicker. The stakes today are so much higher. Why? Nuclear weapons. The author is crystal clear that a modern world war wouldn't just be fought on a battlefield. He paints this absolutely horrifying picture of what nuclear war would mean. People frozen like statues, skin melting away, and consequences like genetic defects that would haunt us for generations. It's just a nightmare scenario.
So if we're really on the brink, what's pushing us there? What's the real root cause? According to the book, it's not just about politics or bad economic policy. No, it goes way deeper than that. We're talking about a fundamental moral problem. The author basically diagnoses the world with a core disease, a massive lack of justice. Think about it. Powerful nations taking what they want from weaker ones, this insatiable greed for resources, and this constant habit of putting national interests first no matter the cost to everyone else. At its heart, it's a crisis of fairness. And this brings us to the most crucial point, the central idea of the whole book. You can't have peace without justice. They are inseparable. The author makes this point really powerfully. He even said it on Capitol Hill, that peace isn't just the absence of war. If you don't build it on a real foundation of justice, any calm you get is just, well, it's just the quiet before the next storm. Okay, so when he says justice, what does he actually mean? Because we're not just talking about courtrooms and legal systems here. The book is calling for something much bigger, a higher standard he calls absolute justice. And where does this idea come from? He draws it from Islamic teachings, specifically this verse from the Quran. And the message here is, well, it's pretty radical. It says you have to be just, period. No exceptions. Even if you're dealing with your absolute worst enemy, you can't let that hatred make you unfair. That's a tough pill to swallow, but it's the core of the argument. And look how deep this concept of absolute justice goes. It means being truthful and fair, even if it hurts you, even if it goes against your own parents, your loved ones, your country. It's about putting fairness above everything. It's a complete commitment to what's right, no matter the personal cost. All right, so we've got the diagnosis, lack of justice, and the guiding principle, absolute justice. So how do we turn that into a real plan? Let's look at the actual pathway to peace that the book lays out. So there's this really clear 3-step framework. Step 1, try to work it out peacefully. Mediate, talk, use diplomacy. But if that doesn't work, and one side starts acting as the aggressor, you move to step 2, intervene. Other nations have to step in, together, to stop them. But, and this is maybe the most important part, step 3 is all about reconciliation. Once the conflict is over, you don't punish the loser into oblivion. You build a fair and lasting peace, so you're not just planting the seeds for the next war. But it's not just about stopping wars that have already started. It's about creating a world where they don't begin in the first place. And that means some big changes. Developed nations helping poor ones, but selflessly, not to control their resources. It means we all have to stop being envious of what other countries have. It means fair trade. And on a human level, it means truly believing that all races, all nationalities are equal. Ultimately, the book argues, it's about turning towards a common creator, which fosters a genuine love for all of humanity.
Now, this wasn't just an academic exercise or some theory written in a book. No way. The author took this message on the road, directly to the people in charge. He actively went out to warn world leaders and show them there was another way.
And you can see the timeline of this campaign for peace right here. He was at the British Parliament in London, he delivered a keynote on Capitol Hill in D.C., and he spoke at the European Parliament in Brussels. He didn't just speak to groups, he sent personal letters to leaders in major hotspots like Iran and Israel, urging them to choose peace. He was constantly pushing this idea, de-escalate and do it through the lens of absolute justice.
Which leaves us with a huge and honestly, a very difficult question. In a world that runs on competing interests, on money, and on old grudges, is this idea of absolute justice even possible? The book lays out a clear path, but the real question, the one that affects every single one of us, is whether we, as humanity, can actually find the will to walk it.